Well, good morning. It is a joy to be back with you today. I always love the opportunity to be here in this congregation. I am the Reverend Charles Loflin, and one of the great perks of my job as Executive Director of Unitarian Universalist Faith Action New Jersey, boy, that's a mouthful, is that I get to visit with our affiliated congregations. There are a number of reasons for doing this. First of all, from just a very practical consideration, it is through services just like the one we're having right now that most people first learn about UU Faith Action and the work that we do and how they can become involved. It's often their introduction to us. And our history is a growing one. We were formed in 2006. The UU congregation down in Princeton supported the establishment of the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministry of New Jersey. And like most UU organizations, it was referred to using its acronym, UULMNJ. It followed the model of the first UU State Action Network, which had been formed in California. It was organized as a 501c3 nonprofit, and since then the organization has grown into a network of 19 affiliated New Jersey UU congregations and about 1,600 total supporters across the state. It rebranded in 2017 as UU Faith Action New Jersey, and under that rebrand, there was a new mission and vision that was written for the organization. Our mission says that we envision a just New Jersey, free from systemic oppression and greed, full of engaged people committed to each other, to our communities, and to the earth. Grounded in our Unitarian Universalist faith, we are confronting systemic injustice and building a more compassionate society in New Jersey by educating ourselves and others on social and political issues, mobilizing individuals and congregations to act for justice, and advocating for equitable and sustainable public policy. And that's who we are. We're currently structured around 4 issues that make up what we call our task forces. Those issues are criminal justice reform, environmental justice, immigration justice, and reproductive justice. And we include within our reproductive justice task force our LGBTQ plus justice. Our work depends on the collective efforts of individual volunteers, and the vast majority of the people who participate at UU Faith Action are themselves UUs who are affiliated with one of our congregations. So that relationship is so very, very important. So again, one of the reasons why I'm grateful for the invitation is if you're hearing about UU Faith Action for the first time, that's part of why I'm here. And I have 2 special guests joining me today. So 2 of our task force chairs are here. We have Tom Moran and Marty Rothfelder. So Tom's the chair of our Criminal Justice Reform Task Force, and Marty is one of the chairs of our Immigration Justice Task Force. After the service today, we're going to be downstairs with you at coffee hour. We would love to connect with you. Like if you want to find out more about what we do, to get our contact information, to learn more about the programs, we would love to have a conversation with you. So please take a moment and join us there. You can also always go to our website, which is uufaithaction.org. And if you go there, what we want you to do at the very top of that page, there is a link to sign up for our action alerts. That's the most important step you can take to find out about the work that we're doing. We never send unsolicited emails to anyone. So the only way you can get on our list is to go to that website and ask to sign up in order to get those emails. And from there, you'll find out so much about the work that we do, and our website is there for you as well. But again, I just want to reiterate, we are eager to talk with you. And it's not just about what we would hope that you might want to do with us at UU Faith Action, but we want this to be a two-way dialogue. We also want to understand how we at UU Faith Action can help your congregation. The work that we do collectively is important because together we're able to accomplish things beyond what any single congregation can do alone. So that part is super, super important. There's a second reason why services like this are very, very important as well, because it gives me an opportunity to express in person my deepest gratitude to those in this congregation who work so hard to make this work possible. Now, it won't be everyone on the list, and it's always dangerous when you start naming names because you're invariably going to leave someone out. But I do want to especially thank Reverend Cynthia because she continues in the long-standing tradition of ministers in this congregation who have been highly supportive of our organization. We are so grateful for her presence and the work that she is doing here in the state. I also want to thank Missy Staples. She is your, yes, please, that's worth it, applause. She is the congregational liaison for the congregation to UU Faith Action. So if you have any questions about what's going on, Missy's a great person to connect with, and she keeps us informed about things that are going on here as well. So thank you, Missy, for all that you do. We're really, really grateful for that. I do want to call out Nadine Sapperman. One of the things that we started a couple of years ago now is we have what we call our Friday action hours. And these are opportunities where we meet on Zoom during the lunch hour. So there's a Zoom meeting that happens at 12. We introduce some sort of justice issue in the state. Like, you don't need to know anything before coming. You just show up. We take 10, 15 minutes to describe an issue, and then we take action together right then. It could be sending an email. It could be making phone calls to a legislator. It could be just getting other information. Sometimes we will even take action on national pieces. But Nadine has been a constant presence at Action Hour, reliably there, and I am so grateful for you and for all the work that you do to help make that a success. So thank you for that. And one more plug for Action Hour. It's really meant to be a drop-in sort of thing. So you don't have to come all the time. We don't expect people to come all the time. It's whenever you're available, it's there for you. And if that time doesn't work for you, if noon on a Friday isn't good, that's fine, because we provide a Google document that lists all the information about what's going on and the actions that we want you to take. And that document's historical. You can go back and see information on every action hour we've had. So all of that is there. If you sign up for our email list, you'll get the information about those action hours, which will include the Zoom link, but also the link to that Google document. And this is an important part. This was really successful for us during the last lame duck legislative campaign. We encourage people to share that document with their larger networks. Someone does not have to be a Unitarian Universalist in order to take these actions. Making a phone call to a legislator in New Jersey is something anyone can do. It takes a couple of minutes. We provide a sample script. Most of the time we're providing the phone number that you need to call. And if we're asking you to contact your own legislators, all you have to do is follow the link that we have there. You put in your address and you'll get the list of your state legislators to be able to contact. So that's super important. Back to my list though. I would be totally remiss if I didn't say thank you to this congregation, to so many people in this congregation who over the years have given so generously to make UU Faith Action Works possible. That it really makes such a huge difference. Our budget, 30% of it comes from donations from congregations, where the congregations have made a commitment to give to us, but 70% of our budget comes from individuals who choose to give to us. And we are especially grateful for those folks who become sustaining givers, who give on a regular basis, whether that's monthly or quarterly or yearly. It makes such a huge difference when it comes time for us to be looking at budgets, to know that money is going to be coming in and to not worry that we have to run these long campaigns. We're not quite an NPR. We don't quite have the bandwidth to run a full-blown campaign every year. So those dollars make a big difference in terms of what we do. And finally, I want to say thank you to this congregation for everyone who participated, especially during the lame duck session in the People's Agenda that we were pushing. I can see the data, which is a great place to be in my position, and I can see how well this congregation participated. That meant responding to the action alerts, or joining phone calls, or showing up at rallies, right? Oftentimes we're meeting down in Trenton, and this congregation was well represented by folks showing up. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you hear nothing else today, please hear that. We are so grateful for everything that you do. Now, it is at this point in my typical UU Faith Action sermon that I have to make what can be a difficult choice, because I have to decide how I'm going to use those precious remaining minutes that are allotted to me. Sometimes I share more detail about every one of our social justice issues. I give more detail about each of our task forces and the work that they're doing around priorities or legislation that's pending, or something that we're doing along those lines, upcoming initiatives. Other times there might be one issue, one piece of legislation, one initiative that rises to such a level of urgency that I would spend all my time talking about that issue. As you can imagine, over the last few months, immigration has often been that issue, as we've talked about what's happening with ICE in the cruel detention and deportation pipeline in which we found ourselves. I could do that this morning so easily. There are bills pending in New Jersey related to immigration justice that are going to be voted on later this month. So there is action to be taken. But I've chosen a different tack today. I'm not going to talk about all of our task forces. I'm not even going to talk about a specific legislative issue. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit more generally about something that's at my heart, deep on my heart, and I suspect may be at issue for many of you as well. And it's really just this. I've been thinking a lot about the times we're living through. I'm sure you have too. It feels like this is an enormous moment of uncertainty, of ambiguity, of transition. It's a time where just about everything in my life feels like it's subject to change right now. And if I'm honest, if I'm perfectly honest, a lot of the change that I see scares the hell out of me. I'm sure it does you as well. Does that resonate? Yeah. Breakneck change. Dangerous change. Things on the verge of falling apart. Things that we thought we could count on. Wondering what kind of world we're going to have, not only for ourselves, but for the generations that follow us. Wondering if the promise of America and democracy will be relegated to another time and a place. Those are monumental changes. Why does it feel so different? Why does it feel like change is happening at this breakneck speed? And is it real? Is it really this momentous? Are we really on the precipice? Is it really something that's dangerous? Or are we just overreacting? Is it our media that has misled us, or is there something different about where we are right now? That's part of what I want to explore today. That's part of what I want to explore today. What is this change that we're facing? And how do we prepare for a time when change is coming and we don't know what to do about it? Greg Sattel is an author. He wrote a book called Cascades: How to Create a Movement That Drives Transformational Change. Here's one of the things he says. He says, humans tend to think about things in a linear way. We assume that progress is happening step by step. You know, you lose a little weight for the summer, you put money into a college fund, you grow a business customer by customer. We measure, we plan, we execute accordingly. One day just follows the next, and we try to make a little progress towards our goals. Yet, many have observed that shifts are often abrupt. It is Hemingway who quite famously described change as happening gradually, then suddenly. Thomas Kuhn explained how revolutions unfold in what he termed abrupt paradigm shifts, when the way of thinking that we all take for granted suddenly shifts in a massive way and everything has to be recalibrated. That happens in the social sciences, it happens in the environmental sciences, it happens in the political sciences. And then a really curious one, mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot described change in terms of what he described as two effects. This is what I want to dig into a little bit now. He says that some of the effects are Noah effects, and some of the effects are Joseph effects. Now, if you know your Jewish scripture, you may get the reference there. Two of the patriarchs in Genesis are Noah and Joseph, right? Joseph of the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat fan, Noah of the flood. And so what Benoit is talking about there is that the Noah effect, or rather the Joseph effect, is continuous and predictable. Because in the Joseph story, Joseph has a dream. And he sees that there's going to be 7 years of good, followed by 7 years of bad. Slow, predictable, cyclical, change that you have time to prepare for. That's a Joseph effect. But a Noah effect is like the flood narrative. It comes on suddenly, somewhat unexpectedly. It catches people by surprise. There are massive shocks disrupting periods of continuity. I wonder which one we're in right now. Lord knows it feels like a Noah effect, does it not? Grab your umbrella and a couple of animals and let's find the ark, shall we? The Noah effect and the Joseph effect describe two very different kinds of change. Now, I want to be very clear here. It's not that one kind of change is good and one kind of change is bad. Not all Noah effects are disasters. And not all predictable steps along the way are progress upward and onward forever, as another one of our Unitarian Universalist forebears said. It's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's just that we need to know what kind of a change we're in when it's happening. And if we are in a Noah effect, where things are happening suddenly, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Unprecedented times, right? Never been seen before. Nothing quite like this. Maybe. That reading I gave you from Theodore Parker, 1841. Theodore Parker. You know what was going on in the country in 1841? We weren't quite there yet, but we were quickly approaching the Civil War. 1841. There was complete division in the country between two political parties who couldn't agree on anything. They couldn't stop calling each other names. They couldn't cooperate to get anything done. There were a whole class of people who were having their fundamental rights denied. They had been living for hundreds of years in slavery. And while some of the people in this country wanted to do something about it, others were deeply invested financially and otherwise in their subjugation. And religion, it wasn't helping. Things were difficult all over. That Unitarianism up in the Northeast, it claimed most of the people, but it was a cold and dying religion that didn't seem to have a heart in it anymore. And into that environment walks Theodore Parker. Theodore Parker. And Theodore Parker is asked to deliver an ordination sermon for a Unitarian who's getting ordained. I don't know if you've ever been to a Unitarian Universalist ordination ceremony. They can be glorious or they can be the most boring things that you ever sit through. I imagine this one was a little boring because as it was common in the day, Parker's sermon was 16,000 words. It's a lot. I'm not giving you 16,000 words today. I'm just telling you that. But what he chose for his topic was this idea of the transient and the permanent in Christianity. So it's a time of massive change, unrest, fear that democracy itself is falling apart, a moral call to do something because it will be in 1850 that the Fugitive Slave Act is passed. And the Fugitive Slave Act will say that everyone has to detain and send back the slaves, even if you live in a northern state. Because if you live in a northern state and you don't do that, then you can be subject to the whims of the authorities who are enforcing that change. Unprecedented, huh? It's into this midst that Theodore Parker, trying to wake up our Unitarian churches, says that there is a division. There is a way of understanding Christianity that would make more sense. And he called it the transient versus the permanent. In it, he basically set up the idea that there are things about Christianity that just don't make any sense. For example, literal belief in the miracles. And Parker is standing up to say there is a way of understanding Christianity that doesn't require that. That there is a core to Christianity that extends beyond the transient, changing things of the moment. And Parker's call is for a religion that bases itself on what he called the permanent, the things that were real and true and essential. Parker would go on eventually to make those claims in other realms as well. He became a staunch abolitionist, and he spent much of his latter years working for democracy. You know Parker, even if you don't know you know Parker. You know him from two quotes. Though, as you're about to discover, if you didn't already know it, they're actually misquotes. The first one is this. How many of you have heard, "The arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice"? Who said that? Nope. Well, he said it, but he was quoting Theodore Parker. Theodore Parker is the original source for that quote. And his quote is a little more nuanced. I won't read you the exact quote, but that's on your homework assignment. Go home and look up the Theodore Parker quote about the moral arc of the universe, because it does provide more nuance. It's a more forward-looking piece. But there's a second quote that you attribute to someone else that actually comes from Parker. How many of you have heard the line, the government of the people, by the people, for the people? Who said that? Abraham Lincoln said that in the Gettysburg Address, but he was quoting Theodore Parker. Because Theodore Parker said, government of all the people, by all the people, for all the people. I like Lincoln, but there's something that gets lost when you leave out that all, don't you think? Parker was on to something. He was on to something important. That the nature of a thing is in part measured by what lasts, by what continues. One of the questions we need to be asking ourselves in this moment of great change is, are the things that are happening to us simply transient things that are tied to culture and are cyclical and will change and move and go along? Because some of that is happening right now. Some of the things we are facing are transient. They are important, but they ultimately won't define us. That's change we can back off of and breathe with. But when the change is for something that matters, something that is essential, something that is at the core of the thing, that's change that we have to be on top of. Change that has to be permanent. Now, this begs a very interesting question in my mind. Is anything permanent? Anything? I am not a Buddhist. I am not a Buddhist, but I am very much influenced by Buddhism. I think Buddhist thought is very provocative, and there's much inspiration I draw from that. The Buddhists amongst us would tell us that, you know what? Nothing is really permanent. Norman Fisher writes in an article, The Impermanence is Buddha Nature. This is published in Lion's Roar. He says, practitioners have always understood impermanence as the cornerstone of Buddhist teachings and practice. All that exists is impermanent. Nothing lasts. Therefore, nothing can be grasped or held on to. Impermanence is the number one inescapable and essentially painful fact of life. It is the singular existential problem that the whole edifice of Buddhist practice is meant to address. To understand impermanence at the deepest possible level, we all understand it at superficial levels, is to merge with it fully. That's the whole of the Buddhist path. And the Buddha's final words express this. Impermanence is inescapable. Everything vanishes. Therefore, there is nothing more important than continuing the path with diligence. All other options either deny or short shrift the problem. So the Buddhists might say to us, your illusion that democracy was going to last forever is what's really passing away. And maybe they're right. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, nothing is permanent. But I don't know that I'm willing to go there yet. One of the reasons I picked the story for all ages today is because it speaks to me as a parent and as a son about some things that I think do last. Because I think love lasts. Does it change? Oh, you better believe it. Does it morph? Is it uncertain and sometimes ambiguous? Is it sometimes a Joseph effect and sometimes a Noah effect? Yeah, but it lasts. Maybe in the great scheme of the whole universe it won't matter. It'll just be a blip in time. But in my life, it matters. Even those who I have loved who are no longer here are still manifesting love in my life. Maybe it's not permanent, but I'm not going to call it impermanent. And I think perhaps there is another guide for us as we explore the change that we are looking at. Really, because if you go back to Parker even, the transient and the permanent is a pretty good way of describing things, but how the heck do you know what's transient and permanent in the moment? It's pretty easy after the fact to look back and say, oh, look how this changed. That thing we thought was so important is no longer that big a deal. Did it really matter what color we painted the sanctuary 20 years ago? I don't know. Some of you might still say it did. But there is that question of how do we know in the moment as we're living it whether this is something that is transient or something that is permanent? How do we know? How do we know? Well, I'm going to suggest this for us, and I'll close with this morning. I think the way to know is to lean into our values. I think the only way we ever know is to lean into our values. I think the value that's most at play here is the value of transformation. Because change can be transformative. Joseph change can be transformative. Noah change can be transformative. The transient change can be transformative. Acknowledging the thing that lasts and is permanent can be transformative. Really, it's about discernment, isn't it? At the end of everything. And I don't want to leave you in a total funk today, so I want to give you a piece of good news. There's a researcher, Erica Chenoweth. She's a political scientist at Harvard University, and she has done a lot of research on what is necessary to thwart authoritarianism. She can confirm that civil disobedience is not only the moral choice, it is also the most powerful way of shaping world politics. Here are the statistics that you want to walk away with today. You probably heard these, but we need to embrace these, friends. Nonviolent protests are twice as likely to succeed as armed conflicts. Twice as likely to succeed. And this is the magic number. Those engaging a threshold of 3.5% of the population have never failed to bring about change. We don't need 50%. We don't need 50% plus one. We need 3.5% of the people who are willing to stand up and say, this is the line, this is my value. 3.5%. UU theologian James Luther Adams spoke of how freedom, rightly used, seeks freedom and social justice for others. And freedom in community cannot be achieved without what he says is the power of organization and the organization of power. That's what we at UU Faith Action are trying to help make happen in this state. We're trying to make sure that we are creating the power of organization and using the organization of power. Come and join us on that fight, will you? Blessed be.